Hello, hello again, everyone. And so here we are at the end of our journey, an 8-video extravaganza finishing off the Cold War. Let's get right to it. Okay, so the guy that is going to oversee all of this from the Russian perspective will be the General Secretary of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, who becomes General Secretary in 1985. And he sees the writing on the wall. Okay, he sees their inability to sustain the military and the issues that they were having with the United States, the Strategic Defense Initiative, all of that type of stuff. He also sees the agricultural issues they're having of sustaining themselves and the need to trade and things like that, much of which they lost when they invaded Afghanistan. So you put all that together, and he's got to make some changes. And he will make some internal changes. One of the things that he is going to do is a program called Glasnost, or openness, which will start to allow greater freedoms of speech and of the press, so that people have opportunities to voice some opinions and, you know, not get thrown in jail for everything. So that's a bonus. The other thing, and in some ways even bigger than that, was perestroika, which was the restructuring, if you will, of the economy so as to stop the fall of Russia economically. Now, on the left there, you see the little cartoon of people saying, well, that's eventually going to crush him, and there will be some actions taken against him. But it's huge. And a great example here is on the right, you actually have the Moscow McDonald's that opened up as one of the first international companies that had an opportunity to have a presence in Russia. And as you can see, it's gigantic. I mean, look at the line. I think today, if there's a line for McDonald's, it's like 3 deep. People don't want to go, but people would wait hours. They were clearing like $1 million a day. But it's this idea that he's trying to stave off collapse because you kind of know that it's coming. But whether it was the perestroika or the glasnost, it just wasn't going to be enough. And so the snowball is starting to pick up pace. 1989 is the year. So in 1989, we have revolts in Poland, Hungary, East Germany, Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, and Romania, which Czechoslovakia also will split later into the Czech Republic and Slovakia. Now, most of these are peaceful victories. There are just massive demonstrations. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people are protesting for change and the leaders to be removed. Romania, they have to fight a bit. That one gets a little bit violent. But in the end, Russia ends up pulling out of all of those areas. And the true symbolic moment here comes in November of 1989 in Berlin, when the wall is abandoned and comes down. So just let's look at some coverage back in the day. You know, I just grabbed some coverage from CNN because that's what I could find. So let's look at what was going on at that time.
It was the largest demonstration in East German history. The main square was carpeted with 500,000 people. The city virtually came to a standstill.
Our top story. The Iron Curtain between East Germany and West Berlin has come tumbling down. East Germany announced today it is opening its borders, allowing its citizens to go anywhere they wish. The future of the Berlin Wall is now up in the air.
East Germany's communist leaders have now taken a symbolic sledgehammer to that wall. It's conceivable, I suppose, now that the real sledgehammers will soon be brought out on that wall. There's just no longer any point of it being there. A prospect that no one could have predicted a year ago or even a month ago.
This has been a city physically divided for 28 years, but now it's come together, east and west, in a spontaneous outburst of emotion.
This could be the first move to dismantling the Berlin Wall that has stood as the most painful symbol of a divided Germany since it was built in 1961.
One after another, drivers and passengers alike said they plan to use their new freedom to spend a weekend in West Germany and take a look at how the other half lives.
Every East German coming to the West receive 100 marks. about $50. Many West German businesses are staying open round the clock to give them a chance to not only spend their money, but pick up goods to take home.
Hundreds of thousands of East Germans swarmed the streets of West Berlin. It was like a sea of people.
This morning, a new hole was made in the Berlin Wall at Potsdamer Platz. Yesterday, it was the Glienicke Bridge that opened up. To many of us, these are just place names. But what signal do these places send to the German people?
Potsdamer Platz was the Times Square of Berlin before the war. I was on Glienicke Bridge yesterday, and I have never seen more grown men with tears in my eyes at any time in my life on that bridge.
The vast majority of East Germans don't want to leave homes, jobs, and families to go live in the West. The question now is whether the breaches in the wall have whetted the appetites of people here, not for just a little more change, but a lot. East German leaders hope that by dismantling those things that have become symbols of their past, they can encourage the return of skilled workers, the doctors, engineers, and scientists needed to rebuild the country's future.
And what you're going to end up seeing eventually is the reunification of Germany shortly thereafter. This was tremendous, and I'm old enough to have watched this. I was 13 years old when this was going on, and it was just shocking. It was just unbelievable to see it happen and to happen so fast. And it also has more political ramifications. So now we have December of 1989, a month after the wall falls, and President George H.W. Bush, who is now the president after Reagan, is going to meet with Premier or General Secretary Gorbachev and discuss, so where are we going to go now? Nothing official comes out of this summit, but it was the USA and the USSR coming together, and the USA basically saying, hey, we'll support you with perestroika, we can maybe do some trade. It was generally positive. They talked about trying to work to reconnect Germany. And really a great example is the idea of building a relationship. And you would actually see that in 1991 with the Gulf War, in which actually the U.S. and the Soviets ran some joint operation things in Iraq and were on the same side in 1991. So we can see the developments that come out of Malta as really, really positive. However, that wasn't going to be where it started. The Soviet Union is huge, and there are tons of ethnic groups in there that aren't Russian, and many of which were actually countries before the Soviet Union took them over. And as a result, what starts to happen is you get more and more agitation from internal republics, particularly the ones that either have large ethnic minorities or B, again, had been free before. And then in 1990, all of a sudden, you're going to see nations like Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia declare independence. Russia, and then those, not only that, but then some of these Russian territories also have open elections and start to put non-communists into power locally and really challenge the central authority of Russia. So now, now you have the issue of, like, is the country going to exist anymore? So first it started with, you've got, losing control of the satellite nations as well as getting kicked out of Afghanistan, and that stuff you can kind of deal with. But the fact that the country itself is now fracturing is really, really scary. And not surprisingly, that's going to lead to a coup. In August of 1991, the actual vice president of the Soviet Union, Gennady Yanayev, is going to lead a coup with part of the military against Gorbachev. And that was something we were very nervous about because there's nuclear implications. Are they going to re-invade Eastern Europe? What's going to go on? However, future first president of the Russian Federation, Boris Yeltsin, who you see there on the bottom, who was the president of Russia, that they use the term president instead of like governor, will lead the charge of tens of thousands of people to rally into the streets of Moscow, as you can see here on the bottom left, to show their support for Gorbachev and show their support for the changes that were going on in Russia, and actually put the coup down bloodlessly, which was incredible. Just an incredible moment. But basically, it's over. A number of republics, in addition to Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. In December 1991, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Moldova, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Ukraine, and Uzbekistan are all out. What is left is the Russian Federation of what you would see on a map today. And so when we look at that map, this just gives you an idea, one, first of all, of how huge Russia is, but all of these countries that break away, which is a gigantic area. I mean, Belarus, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, these places are Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan. These are really big countries. And so all of these countries break away, and it's over. And it's not just in the Soviet Union. So let me go back here. So this is the Soviet Union, like, and then you have all here. But then communism all over the world collapses. Because remember, we talked about you had the spread of communism into other areas of the world. So here in Europe, we have the collapse of Yugoslavia, which unfortunately will lead to terrible wars and genocide. We will be talking about that separately. But we look at Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Kosovo, Macedonia, Montenegro, Serbia, and Slovenia all come back into existence after the collapse of Yugoslavia. In Asia, Afghanistan, Cambodia, Yemen, Mongolia all overthrow their communist-style governments. The picture on the right, you're like, what is that? Look, I said Mongolia. I really didn't have a map, but I just found it really cool that Mongolia has this giant statue, if you will, dedicated to the Beatles. This is actually in Ulaanbaatar, and that's what we're embracing the West here. We're not just going to do, be run by communism anymore. Now, that being said, Laos, Vietnam, China, still partially communist today. So it wasn't like all of Asia, but most of Asia. And then in Africa, you look at all of these nations who were communist all the time, and you see all of them dipping as well. So this is kind of the height of communism. You look at all throughout Asia, so there's like Laos, Cambodia, right, North Korea, and then here we have Angola, we have the Congo, right up here, I think that's Benin, Somalia here, Ethiopia, Mozambique, Madagascar. All of it comes down. And it's done. It's done. This long journey, tremendously influential. We still have issues today that kind of stem from that. To be fair, the United States and Russia aren't like buddy-buddy, right? We're not hanging out on the weekends here. But, it was tremendous. And to watch it all happen so fast and in general, bloodlessly in many of these places. Don't get me wrong, there's some revolts in other places that we'll get to, but it was really remarkable. And with that ends our series on the Cold War. Hope you guys got a good sense of what was going on at that time, and I'll see you soon.